Second place, Tony Stewart, following his teammate Denny Hamlin. More on the 20 car with Dave.
And Jerry, you guys mentioned last week, he radioed to his team just before the race started. You know what? It's an understatement to say last week didn't work out so well. But, you know, he commented this week to the press and on his Sirius satellite radio show that he thought NASCAR did the right thing when they restarted the race, when they gave the fans what they were looking for. They did the right thing. He says, I don't want weather to be a determining factor in these final 10 races, even though it didn't work out for us. The one thing he does need to do, you guys brought that up as well, he needs to get up in front at some point and get those 5 extra bonus points.
Yeah, they've coming off that disappointment of a week ago where Tony Stewart finished back in 39th position, now following his current teammate and right in front of the 5 car. That's his teammate for next year, Kyle Busch.
You talk about teammates. I remember this 11 and 20 at Daytona, the last restrictor plate race running up front. And I think maybe Tony said, I'm going to cool it a little bit here today, and I'll get those 5 points before the day's over.
You know, it's amazing that Tony's not talking on the radio back and forth, the 11 car going, hey, let me lead a lap here. You know, I'll get back in line if I can, but I want to get this 5 points now. I might not get it later.
If you're in the 20 car, do you do that? Do you make that request through your crew chief to the 11?
Absolutely. I'm on the radio right now going, hey, tell Denny that I want to get 5 points, and when I get them, I'll give him the position back. And what's going to happen, the 5 car needs a guard for him, but he can't because he's on a different team now. If that was next year, they could all 3 be talking, but right now, can't get her done.
The 15 car of Paul Menard. Now remember, that's one of the DEI cars, has the same engine package that Dale Earnhardt has on board, so you know it's stout. Take a look at our sprint speed lap and look at Paul Menard. Is he sprinting somewhere in a hurry? His last lap, 194.6 miles per hour. He's in a hurry.
That draft's worth a ton, especially when you get back in a group and you've got this one big group in front of you and you're the head of the next one. You can just zoom up through there in that vacuum.
Yeah, and especially if you use it correctly, too. And he did. He was almost 2 miles per hour faster, so he knows how to get her done.
72 laps of 188. There have been 20 lead changes among 13 different drivers. Right now, it's a Joe Gibbs parade up front. Denny Hamlin and Tony Stewart running 1-2. You're watching ESPN on ABC.
ESPN's coverage of NASCAR Nextel Cup Series on ABC. Brought to you by Allstate, the official insurance sponsor of NASCAR. Gillette Fusion Power, the best shave ever. And Coca-Cola. Thanks for drinking.
Back at Talladega Superspeedway, 41 cars on the lead lap, and folks, 42 cars in the lead draft. Aerial coverage brought to you by Goodyear, the official tire of NASCAR, helping NASCAR drivers get to the finish line for over 50 years. You can see that lead draft right there, courtesy of our friends at Goodyear. Folks, 42 cars that close at over 196 miles an hour.
Well, the thing I'm really amazed about right now, Jerry, is nobody's pushing issue whatsoever. They're not trying to run 2 or 3 wide. They're just stuck to the top of that track, just logging laps. These drivers came in scared about what was going to happen today. It looks like they're being pretty careful.
It's the calm before the storm, if you ask me. I think when these guys start to get down where they can see the finish, it's going to get real, real exciting.
We talked about the inexperience of one driver who had a great qualifying run who starts 6th in his very first NASCAR Nextel Cup stock car race on a super speedway. Jacques Villeneuve, a former Indy 500 and Formula One world champion. And he is getting some very valuable experience here on this racetrack right now.
Yeah, like I said, it's awful calm right now. I don't know if he knows what's getting ready to happen.
Well, he probably doesn't know. Later in the race, all heck's going to break loose, but he's doing the right thing right now. He's gained a lot of respect out of his competitors. He's just logging laps and understanding these car tomorrows here.
He really is doing a good job.
Let's take a look at our AT&T Crew Chief Challenge. And the question this week is, which former Indy 500 winner will have the most successful NASCAR career? Will it be A, Dario Franchitti, who will be coming full-time in 2008, and Sam Hornish Jr., who's going to run the next 2 events we're told, at Charlotte, and of course Martinsville? Juan Pablo Montoya, leading Rookie of the Year point standings, or Jacques Villeneuve, the former Formula One world champion? Text the word crew to 191 on your wireless phone and send in your answer. The results will be shown later on in the race.
Well, that's a tough one to pick right now because all we've ever got to see a lot of is Montoya. So probably the viewers will say, oh, it's Montoya. But there's 3 other good choices to pick from once we get to see more of them.
talking about all the open wheel kings, the former open wheel champions, Indy 500 winners, and other guys from the IRL making the move to NASCAR. We asked Juan Pablo Montoya his thoughts on those moves.
The second biggest sport in America. And, who doesn't want to be part of it? That's the question. I've done a lot of racing in my life. I've been in Formula 1, supposedly is the greatest racing on earth, but I came here and I'm enjoying myself 10 times over.
When you talk to Montoya, he said, I like racing NASCAR so much, I feel like I'm passing. And when he was in F1, he did a lot of testing that drove him crazy. He feel like he couldn't compete as much as he wanted to. And he'll tell you he loves this. You just heard him 10 times more.
He won the Indianapolis 500. He won the Grand Prix of Monaco, the crown jewel in Formula One. But he desperately wants to win on a super speedway oval here in NASCAR Nextel Cup. And here's some experience for Jacques Villeneuve as he's on the bottom of this three-wide battle here in the turn.
And that's what he needs to do. He needs to get up the race a little bit so he knows what happens. He's logging laps. He's doing a good job. But, hey, you're not going to learn anything if you just sit by yourself and drive 500 miles. He's got to get up there and scrap with these guys a little bit, see what happens.
Jamie?
Well, Doc, Jacques Villeneuve was asked, why come over to NASCAR for the next step in your career? And he said, well, you know what? In Formula One, it's only fun if you're running at the front. Otherwise, it's boring. Over here in NASCAR, it looks like it's fun all the time. He's having a little bit of fun today.
Car looks pretty clean, too. He doesn't have any marks on it. He's kind of just minding his own business here, and he's getting a little drafting help from Brian Vickers.
I'm sure some of the veterans said if you want to learn, get to the back of the pack and stay out of trouble and follow some of the better race car drivers. You'll learn a lot about this race. And how about some of the veterans who always use that strategy? Dale Jarrett in the 44 car has used that strategy, and he's been to victory lane twice here at Talladega.
And I watched him use this strategy the year that he won his last race up here at Talladega. He kind of hung in the back of the pack, and you're thinking, what's wrong? And all of a sudden you look up, he's leading the thing, and he wins the race. Right there at the right time.
Later on next week, Dale Jarrett has called a press conference to discuss his future. What will he say? Maybe a limited schedule in 2008, possible retirement. That's coming up next week as we get ready to go to Lowe's Motor Speedway. One of the cars that NASCAR has been watching closely is the 18 car of J.J. Yaley, who, by the way, had one of the best cars in happy hour here yesterday. But now, Andy, they're watching him because of some possible fluid out of the back of the car.
Could be he's running a little bit hot, maybe losing a little bit of oil there, but don't know what kind of thing he's fighting. He's running fast enough. He's keeping up with these guys.
We look at the back of the car. It's kind of coated with some debris, maybe some oil or something a little darker looking on that interstate sign. So could be some leaking of oil there causing that.
That's what NASCAR looks for. They look for that back panel. If it starts getting a dark color to it, they know that the car's leaking fluid.
Doesn't look like it's leaking a lot. We don't see any smoke or anything, but you can tell something's going on. Take a look, Kevin Harvick, a little bump drafting going on right now. Backs off the throttle, does just what NASCAR said. Don't push the issue through the center of the corner.
40 car you saw behind Harvick, that's David Strimmy looking for a ride in 2008. That is the car that Dario Franchitti will drive in 2008 here in Nextel Cup.
Look at the lap times right now. The bottom lane of the racetrack looks like it's running about exactly the same speed as the top. They get a lot of run down the back straightaway and enter turn one and then slow up a little bit dead in the middle.
One thing we used to see is when these cars would get side by side, say part of the way back through the pack, it would separate the packs a little bit. We don't see that happening here. Here's Joe Nemechek in the 78 car having some issues too. He's leaking fluid, getting black flagged by NASCAR.
Stay down low, Joe.
You have to remember he was one of the guys that qualified his car on a qualifying setup. Qualified fourth, had a great run, but these are the kinds of things that these guys were worried about.
And this was an impound race, so they couldn't adjust the cars after qualifying, so they had to go with what they had in qualifying setup. Mike?
Well, Doc, you guys pretty much hit right on it. This team really took some chances with their qualifying setup. They admitted fully coming into this race that they compromised the reliability of this motor. So much, in fact, that at one point early in this race, they came down pit road and had to reattach some belts. They had disconnected some belts for qualifying that gave them a little bit extra horsepower, but they fully admitted they took some chances and knew that this type of thing could happen coming into this race.
Well, you got to give them credit, though. They went ahead and rolled the dice here. They got the car in the race, which was the main thing. And if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have, we wouldn't got to do anything.
Absolutely. These are Hendrick engines in the 78 car, the same as the 24 car, Jimmy Johnson, and 48. Both those guys, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. So you wonder, why did he qualify so much faster, almost 0.6 of a second?
And
light oil, things like that.
That's the reason, but it does carry these risks with it.
We began the day with 3 different lines of drafting cars. For about 30 laps, we had a single line, and now as we approach the halfway, that second line beginning to form as side-by-side drafting now comes to bear. And folks, we've always talked about the big one. In the last handful of years, we've been able to go to nearly lap 100 until it breaks loose. Let's hope we go a lot further today. 188 laps in the books at Talladega. Denny Hamlin is our leader.